Hello everyone, welcome to Red Snapper. My name's MJ and this is Snap or Pass. Today we're looking at Madam Web. She's a 2-1 ongoing. You can move one of your other cards away from here each turn. In this video we'll be looking at the Spotlight Cash week that she's in, the mechanics of the card, beneficial locations, counters, some awesome decks. I've got an absolute spice bomb for you. And ultimately, we'll be answering the question of, is she a snap or pass? As always, thanks to Drewberry for letting me continue this series. And if you're new, please subscribe. We're on the road to 2,099 subscribers, and we've got an absolutely awesome video that I've been planning, I've been prepping, I've been practicing. It's not going well, but it's going to be a chaos video, so please subscribe. Right, first of all, let's look at the Spotlight week that Madam Web is in. We've got two Series 5 and a Series 4. Obviously, Madam Web herself being one of the Series 5s. She's alongside Silk, who's a Series 4. The notable thing about this Silk variant is that it sort of completes the Spider-Verse variant series that they did. Well, it sort of completes it anyway. Actually, we're actually still waiting for Spider-Man 2099, I guess. But alongside the very spicy Spider-Man, and they did a Miles one, didn't they? A Miles one and the Ghost Spider one, which are really cool. So I like this variant. And Alioth, this Alioth is sick. This variant looks amazing. I actually think this might be the best Alioth variant. So I'm certainly not going to be upset if I get this. I am rolling keys this week. And just in general, the card is really, really strong. I love the cube power of this guy. Snapping and knowing that you're going to get that 8 because you know exactly what they're going to do and they're not going to be able to do it. Right, let's move on to the mechanics in association with Pepsi Cola. I do need to just say, like, just in case anyone from Pepsi Cola is watching, I don't know if legally I'm allowed to say that because it's actually not in association with Pepsi. Anyway, so you can move one card per turn that presumably can't already move. So what I mean by that is, if you've got Nightcrawler at the location where Madam Web is, I'm assuming that if you move Nightcrawler, that uses Nightcrawler's movement rather than Madam Web's. The interesting part of that is that you may wish to move Nightcrawler away from Madam Web and actually use Madam Web's ability to move Nightcrawler and then move Nightcrawler later. Like I say, I'm just assuming because I don't know exactly how it works. Maybe it assigns the free Madam Web movement token, if you want to call it that, to the first card you move away from there. It's possible. So yeah, there's one little consideration there, which I'm not quite sure on. I'm just making an assumption. And the really interesting, amazing, cool, incredible thing with Madam Web is that she is the second half of this move engine that we needed. So you've now got an actual move engine alongside Hercules of this perpetual sort of self-sustaining engine that just works, which is super exciting and super powerful. So let's talk about the pros. She gives flexibility to you and makes your plays unpredictable. So of course Madam Web is going to be incredible in move, and we're going to talk a lot about move in this video, obviously. Sorry, that sounded very patronising the way I said, obviously. Nah, that was just good. But outside of move decks, she's going to have this cool, unpredictable factor. I saw Regis Kilbin's preview video, actually, of the season. He suggested maybe would Madam Web fit in even an ongoing deck. And I 100% think she would. I think actually having that ability to move and swap lanes and stuff, maybe you've got like Ant-Man and Mojo in a location. Mojo in particular would be a really cool one to be able to move out of that Madam Web location and surprise them in a location which they're going for harder. So I think that kind of thing is really interesting and really cool. You can set traps, for example, using cards like Echo and Cosmo on Madam Web. You can easily move them out, and that can really, because I mean so many decks use on reveals, so that Cosmo, just in general, I don't think people are playing Cosmo enough at the moment, so I think that's absolutely fascinating that you could play Cosmo down on top of Madam Web, possibly Scarper one of their plans, and then they, as the opponent, are thinking, oh my god, are they going to move that bloody dog? Move the bloody dog! I don't know why I said that's not a phrase. Anyway, are they going to move Cosmo and potentially mess up other plans? So that's very intriguing, and the trap side of it I think is fascinating. As we discussed in the engine a minute ago, it gives move decks an effect that you can use multiple times without needing a trigger card like Iron Fist or Ghost Spider. This, again, is just so powerful, even if you don't have the other half of that move engine with Hercules. just being able to move cards on their own is so powerful, and it feels really good to play as well. Anyone who has ever played a Phoenix Force deck, you know how fun and powerful it feels to be able to control that Phoenix Force or even that Vision. These cards just feel inherently good when you can just actively move them yourself. So I think she's going to make other cards feel good, like feel good to play. Like genuinely this card will release endorphins and make you feel better. So I think that's really cool. And she will enable very fast scaling for cards like Dagger and Vulture with crazy final turn pop-offs. The numbers that move decks will be able to achieve with the addition of Madam Web to the game is absolutely crazy, to be honest. Like, it's actually scary. And I do wonder if some of these move cards are going to be toned down. I think especially Vulture and Dagger, both of them recently, fairly recently at least, had very substantial buffs. And them being so much easier to move now, and the extra flexibility that Madam Web gives them, I just think, I do think they might be touched down. Maybe Dagger will come down to +2 instead of +3, and I can see Vulture coming down to like +4 instead of +6, like possibly even further. That's almost a con, actually, is that if you are excited for Madam Web, the move package as a whole might get a nerf. So now let's talk about the cons. So she's relatively low tempo, it's a 2-1, and that is going to be potentially more difficult to recuperate that lost tempo outside of a move deck. In a move deck, I think you'll be okay recouping. Again with the patronising, Jesus. But yeah, outside of a move deck, I think it will be slightly harder to recuperate that loss of tempo. But in the kinds of decks that I think she's going to work, like the Silky Smooth stuff, I think you'll be okay, and generally not a massive downside, because it is such a powerful effect. And I'm not sure what other cons there are. I mean, yes, there's things that you can do to counter Madam Web, but I'm not sure what else there is. I mean, coming soon, there are more counters to move in general that's coming. I think Scream is a big part of that. Scream, I think, is going to be meta-defining when she comes out. She is like an anti-move card. So the only other con I've got is just generally Madam Web is very cringe for you to play because the movie was poorly received. And I've got a quote from the movie here. He was in the Amazon with my mum. Should I do the accent? Most of my viewers are American, so this could be offensive. He was in the Amazon with my mum when she died. He was in the Amazon with my mum when she... Should I actually try and do a Dakota Johnson impression? Fit. He was in the Amazon with my mum when she was researching spiders just before she died. That was... Counters. There are quite a lot of things that do counter Madam Web. One thing I haven't got listed here is Kingpin. Kingpin in general probably going to be a reasonably important card for you to just insert into decks on maybe the week of Madam Web's release, just to keep some of that power in check. Anyway, Echo I think is going to be very interesting if you can get that priority or surprise play Echo where you think they're going to play Madam Web. So for example, if they turn one Human Torch and you've got tempo, get that Echo down on top of that Human Torch. Rogue is an absolutely huge one, I think. Rogue stonks are going to go much higher, again, certainly on the week of Madam Web's release, because it's definitely going to be an absolutely damning thing if you can steal their Madam Web. That's absolutely cracked. And going to be, it takes away from them so greatly, and it's a massive benefit to you as well, because you then just copy the exact unpredictability and all of those things that we spoke about earlier. Enchantress, of course, can remove the ability. The thing with Enchantress is it's coming a little bit late. They've already had a couple of turns where they've been able to use Madam Web's ability, so Enchantress's true power remains to be seen. And as we discussed, not out yet, but in about a month after this video comes out, Scream is coming to the game, and she is going to be such a big counter that I wanted to mention her. If you're not familiar with her power, she is a 2/2, and she's got the ability, when one of your opponent's cards moves, steal 2 power from it once per turn. So when a card moves, she steals 2, so they go down -2, and Scream goes up +2. So it's like 4 power scaling. Very, very strong. Let's talk about the key synergies and decks. So key synergies, there's a couple that, I mean, I could have put masses more here, but these are some of my favourites at least. And again, I really, really crucially wanted to talk about, I don't normally do this, but I wanted to talk about a few future cards in this video. So that's why you'll see Toxin in there, who we'll get onto in a minute, despite me raising him now. Anyway, Human Torch. Human Torch is going to be really cool because it's one of the cards, or really, I guess, the main one-play card, turn one card. We play him down, then you can play, you can play Madam Web and immediately get the benefit from turn 3 and really get things kicking off straight away. Kraven's going to be good because obviously, previously you need all those triggers. We've spoken about this stuff previously. You needed triggers generally to move stuff. So Kraven's going to greatly benefit from all of these additional moves you'll be able to do. Because of course, you will still play those trigger cards in these decks. So Kraven gets double bubble. Dagger and Vulture. These are really the primary, I think, the primary benefactors from Madam Web. Because they are so powerful. They scale so tremendously themselves. And whilst Human Torch doubles, so Human Torch can get absolutely massive, there's always that Killmonger hanging over your Human Torch. And even Shang-Chi. Not that Shang-Chi doesn't hang over Dagger and Vulture, but their placement makes them more unpredictable, and Human Torch can be killed anywhere via Killmonger. So it's more fragile. Human Torch is more fragile. So Dagger and Vulture are both just they're going to be absolutely gangbuster huge. Hercules maybe the most important factor alongside Madam Web because they are this partnership that create this engine, like I've said. In fact, I haven't fully explained the engine itself. I think it's self-explanatory, but again, sorry, patronise. I'm being just extraordinarily patronised in this episode, and I can only apologise. They create this engine. You've got Madam Web, where you can move one card a turn, and Hercules automatically kicks out cards that move to his location. So when you move cards between them, you get this ping pong. It's this ping pong thing. Not ping pong, pinball. I'm the thick one now. Pinball, like bush. And on those times, because 50% of the time, unless you block a location and force it, but 50% of the time, the card that gets kicked out of the Hercules location can end up back at the Madam Web location. It's a filthy madness. And I wanted to mention a future card, Toxin. Toxin is the new single location bounce card at 2 cost. Beast has gone up to 3/5. And Falcon does just 1 cost. So Toxin is your new 1 location bounce. And you can certainly do that on a Madam Web location. You can certainly do it. Or you can just do it to get back other card triggers. But being able to move Madam Web herself as well, I think is going to be really interesting. And redistribute everything that you're doing, and do you know what I mean? Anyway, yeah, because bounce move is going to be crazy, and we've got sort of a flavour of that in one of these decks. So the spiciest deck I've got for you, I think, is this negative move deck. I think this is just absolute filth. So yes, you do have a few cards in here that you don't want to flip. Iron Fist, Human Torch, and Ghost Spider. They would all end up at 2/1. You don't really want to do that, but it's certainly not the end of the world. Everything else that you've got in here either wants to be flipped or is a flip activator, like Ravonna and Mr. Negative. You've got spiciness in here like Iron Man and Mystique, and the really crucial thing with Mystique is you don't have to copy the Iron Man. You can copy the Madam Web. That may be equally beneficial. Even if you just don't get the negative stuff going. Get Madam Web down on 2, Mystique down on 3, get maybe Human Torch and Vulture down on 4. For the next couple of turns, you can like do this recycling logo thing. So move one to the other, and it goes round in circles. And if you've done that, I mean, hell, you could literally skip turn 5 and then play Taskmaster on the Vulture. And by this point, what is Vulture by this point? You've played them on 4. You move them on 5 and 6. So Vulture's like a what, 15? You copy in the 15 with Taskmaster, and your Human Torch has gone 2 to 4, 4 to 8. Absolute madness. It's absolute madness, guys. I think this deck is pure filth. So yeah, enjoy it if you do try it. I'm certainly going to be like, this for me is one of the most interesting decks I've made in a while, so I'm definitely going to be trying that one out. My next deck actually doesn't have Vulture in, but I think you could certainly stick Vulture in here, and it would be probably even a better deck. Drop armor for Vulture, but I wanted to have a slightly different kind of take on what I think will be the atypical move engine style deck. So we have got the engine components in this deck of Madam Web and Hercules, and then we've got the bounce card. So we've got the newly upcosted Beast at 3/5. We've got Falcon. I've got armor in here because, crucially, I didn't want to have these massive power cards be destroyed. That is a thing that the like special element that I wanted, the special stamp that I wanted to put on this deck. Sure, you could have the Vulture in here. The one slight difficult thing that I want to mention with this deck is that Taskmaster's been up-costed as well to a 6-cost card. So it makes some of the combos a bit more difficult in this deck. You may need to be careful with what you're playing. I think primarily you're going to be using the Taskmaster for a free Human Torch. Maybe like the final turn you've bounced Human Torch and Iron Fist, and so you go Iron Fist, Human Torch, and then Taskmaster. So I think that's probably going to be one of the key play lines with this deck. Or like I say, just stick Vulture in if you're not as worried about Shang-Chi. But yeah, I think just the numbers that this style of deck is going to be able to achieve is nuts. And finally, let's talk about Inda Club of Webs. This is like a silky smooth style of deck, but around these parts, we call it Inda Club. We call it Inda Club because Inda Club you mingle rhymes with Pringle, Pringle comes at a stack, and that's what you do in these decks, is you stack cards in one location. So we've got cards that benefit from being played in one location. That is, of course, Hope, Elsa, Angela. We've got all of those classics there. But you may see some differences. We've actually got less move cards. So you might typically expect to see Vision and certainly Nightcrawler in these styles of decks. I thought, we've now got Madam Web. So let's tone down the move a little bit. We've still got a few. We've got Jeff. We've got Nocturne. Really love Nocturne, even though she's come down in power a bit. But let's try and amp up off of the Hope Summers. So we've got a little bit of card generation in here with Valentina and Agent Coulson. Let's have Kraven in here to benefit from the move stuff, but also let's have Kraven in here and move their cards. So we've got Aero and Magneto, who potentially with Hope we can play out early as well. So I really like that element and factor to it. And we also got Silver Sable because I just think she's incredible. And yeah, just generally I think this deck is going to be extremely fun. You've got the little element of shield randomness. You've got the disruption of moving their cards, as well as moving your cards, and that unpredictability level, and of course the spiciness of getting those benefits of playing in one location and being able to move them out. Angela, Madam Web, Elsa, Hope, is going to be really fun, really cool. I can't wait for Madam Web. She's just going to add such fun to move deck. So what do I think of her? Is she a snap or pass? Of bloody course she's a snap. I think she's one of the best cards in the damn game. No, yeah, I do think she's one of the most important cards for move. I think that whole element, that whole archetype is going to go absolutely explosive. And like I say, batten down the hatches, expect nerfs. Do expect them, because this is going to be absolutely huge. So if you want to counter against it, get your Kingpin in there. I don't know what else is going to counter them, like Shadow King maybe, Shang-Chi, Killmonger for the Human Torches. But yeah, as you can see, I've given her 4 stars as well. I wonder if I'm a little bit low, honestly. Like, that's come up from my season preview video. The more I thought about this card and started brewing, I was just like, yes, she is mainly a move card. Of course she is. And that's why I gave her initially a slightly lower score, because I think any card that is specifically one archetype can't ever truly be among the best cards in the game, because it doesn't have the wide, broad ability. But I don't know, she's just so good. She's so good for move. And I think generally she will be good in most decks anyway, just for the extra unpredictability that she gives. And there are quite a lot of locations that benefit from move. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Check out Your Life, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.